What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Scout and Combine here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm joined by my co-host Eric Smith. Eric, how are we doing today, my guy?
Hey, I'm doing great. Another great day in paradise, slow part of the season. Everybody's talking about Tua, everybody's talking about, right guard, all kinds of stuff that, you talk about when we're in the slow part of the off season.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about Tua and his contract. Definitely a lot of good and bad coming out of it. We don't know where the Dolphins are in terms of negotiating and what Tua will get. But before we get into this episode, what are your thoughts on the contract situation?
I think it's going to get done. I'll be really surprised if it doesn't get done before training camp. For me, as long as it gets done before training camp, I have no issues at all with it. If it starts to drag into training camp, I know that um, Alf talked about having three different deadlines, the beginning of training camp, before the first preseason game and that first regular season game. For me, if we get into training camp and the contract's not done, then I feel like that's where it kind of starts to fall behind. I know that Tua knows the offense well, so missing 1 or 2 days of training camp isn't going to hurt the offense. But if we start dragging that out and we're not able to expand the offense the way that we all hope that we are able to do this upcoming season, that's where I start to get a little worried. But I would say between now and the beginning of training camp, like it's not going to change for me whether this deal gets done in that time frame or not.
Yeah, I do. I also think the deal will get done. The Dolphins love Tua. Tua wants to be here in Miami. It's just a matter of money and what his agent is willing to compromise with the Dolphins front office. We obviously don't know what the conversations are like. We don't know, how far apart they are in terms of money, specifically on guarantees, whether they're, you know, 10 or $20 million off, or maybe $2 or $3 million off. Maybe those could be deal breakers. We really don't know. But today's not a Tua episode. This is not a Tua show. Today we were talking about what went right and what went wrong with Vic Fangio. And we're going to be taking a look at 6 plays today. We're going to be doing a defensive deep dive on the Fangio defense. We'll be taking a look at 3 good plays and 3 bad plays, breaking them down, and we will be going into some efficiency numbers and production numbers as well for this defense, and what we can see with changes with Anthony Weaver as our defensive coordinator. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Fangio system overall. Eric, we know it's a very vanilla system. Talk to us what the defense looks like from a defensive line perspective, a linebacker perspective, and a defensive back perspective.
Yeah, so it's pretty well known that Vic Fangio does not like to rotate players. So when you're looking at what's on the field, it's the same picture almost all the time, and that's from the personnel that's on the field, in your defensive line, to your linebackers, to your secondary. He likes to give you the same pre-snap looks every play, and then have the post-snap adjustments to that. I think that early on in the season, we saw the team struggle some with that. And I think some of the examples that we're going to look at today are going to kind of reflect that. But then as they, started to learn those post-snap adjustments and being able to disguise that coverage, and we saw that defense improve, and they did do pretty well statistically in 2023. But, the general idea of the Fangio defense is you're getting the same look almost every play pre-snap from a personnel and an alignment perspective, and they're trying to disguise that as long as they can.
Right. They were a top 10 defense in terms of efficiency. They were number 5 in EPA per play, number 10 in success rate, fourth up against the pass, 15th against the rush, and they were first in not allowing explosive plays overall. But there was a downside to this as well. Teams would gain a lot of yards on them, and when the crucial time came, good teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, they would be able to score on them and move the ball down the field with no problem. And that's where the issue lies. Going up against these really good quarterbacks in Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, especially at the top of the AFC conference, it becomes challenging in dealing with these quarterbacks. We've seen how a Fangio defense in Miami does up against those types of opponents. And we've seen how a Anthony Weaver / Brian Flores / Josh Boyer defense do up against those quarterbacks. I mean, with Brian Flores, they beat Josh Allen, I believe, once, twice, actually, twice. One in Allen's rookie season, which was 20. No, that was not Brian Flores at all. Scratch me. I think Brian Flores has only beaten Josh Allen once in Miami. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know that one offhand, so I would go with what you're saying on that.
Right. He's beaten him once at home as well. He's beaten Lamar Jackson once as well. Patrick Mahomes, they were close to beating him in the fourth quarter, but ultimately they could not do it. And neither would Josh Boyer as well. And with Fangio, they couldn't beat Josh Allen at all. They got absolutely obliterated by Lamar Jackson. They had a chance in Germany, and they couldn't do it up against the Chiefs in Arrowhead in a playoff wildcard game, which was also, one of the coldest games in Dolphins franchise history and one of the coldest games in NFL history. So it's kind of like a give or take. We're like, okay, none of these systems have given us success. Is it the players? Is it the coach? Is it the system? We'll get into the context as well. So let's go ahead and talk about some good plays that came out of the Fangio system right here. All right, so right here, Vic Fangio is going to be dialing up a pressure 6. So that means 6 men are going to be coming up into the goal line, and it's primarily going to be here within the B gaps right here. In this play, we're going to see Herbert throw into the flat as the pressure closes in, and the coverage looks pretty good in the back end. I'll go ahead and run the clip right here. All right, Eric, pre-snap, what are you seeing? We know someone's going to be motioning here, but what are you looking for on the defensive line side of the ball, and what does the offensive line need to do in this situation pre-snap?
Yeah, so like we just talked about, like the Fangio defense is, one of the staples that it's the same look pre-snap, and that's kind of what you get here is a very balanced look pre-snap. You've got, a normal 4-man front, you got 2 linebackers, and then, the secondary is pretty generic looking. So they're not really showing anything pre-snap here in terms of tendencies. So from a blocking perspective, we're probably going to see just a traditional slide left or slide right, half slide type protection. And we'll see how that goes.
All right, Gerald Everett motions out right there. It looks like man coverage because the safety right here is following Gerald Everett. Go ahead and run the play. Okay, right immediately at the snap when Herbert says, "Hut," the count is done. You can see the linebackers flooding immediately into the B gap. As an offensive line, as an offensive guard, when you see these players come through, does the protection change right at the snap, or does the protection change the same, or how do the guards play this?
So that's a good question. So I know that you and I offline have discussed that Dolphins playbook that was floating around there for a bit, and part of the thing that was in there was the different pass protection schemes, and there's probably 15 to 20 different types of pre-snap protections that can be called that all look similar but can be slightly different. So depending on what the call is, that are all very similar, sometimes they're looking to pick up either the 2 most dangerous men is the way that it's labeled, which would be the 2 inside most guys, shortest path to the quarterback, and sometimes you'll see it talking about the 2 widest guys. So the quarterback knows that protection and is going to know where that hot read is going to be. So most of the time, the call is going to be made pre-snap. And if there's only, if there's even numbers, it's going to stay with the pre-snap call. But if the numbers change, right? So if
like it changes right here.
Yes, right. So I think the numbers are actually going to be even on this. I think Everett stays in to block with that linebacker. Yeah, so he's going out the defensive end. So the numbers even out here. So this is probably a slide left protection because you have the extra blocker with Everett on the right side. And that was probably what that motion was. Like that may have been a pre-snap adjustment by Herbert anticipating a blitz and
Yeah, look
calling
at the
Everett
way
in.
Phillips
Yep.
slides out just a little bit over to the right.
Yep. So he may be calling Everett in and going into a protection that basically allows the line to slide to the left, knowing that they have one extra guy to the right. You can see that the pass concept on the left, you've got the two inside receivers running those deeper post patterns, and the outside receiver kind of running a drag there. And I'm kind of surprised that he didn't go that way with the play. But I think that when those linebackers came, Herbert decided that he was going with that one-on-one matchup on the right side.
All right, we're going to take a look at this play one more time. This play right here, since he was the lone receiver, there's less of a, risky play because you only have two defensive backs on this side of the ball as opposed to 1, 2, 3. So as the quarterback, when pressure's coming, I'm going to try and throw the ball where there's less defenders and where there is less of a risk or a less risky play, a less turnover worthy play right here. I feel like this was a good job done by Justin Herbert as well. This was a good call by Vic Fangio as well, not allowing a score in the red zone. And this was a timely pressure call right here. I mean, if Herbert really stood his ground right there and tried to throw over to the drag route where this receiver has some yards to get up the field and get closer to the red zone, that would have been a good option. But as you can see, Phillips is coming up right there, and Herbert's like, nope, I'm just gonna go ahead and dump it right out.
Right. Even though there's two defenders on that side, with the way that route is run, that safety has no chance of getting to the sideline. So that's a pretty safe throw in that scenario because unless that cornerback really drives on it and jumps that route, most of the times you're either going to have a catch or that ball is going to go out of bounds.
Right. All right, we're gonna go ahead to this play right here. All right, this is known as a fire zone look. This is basically a creeper rush with a whip concept call. So what this means is that you have 4 pass rushers. So you can say 1, 2, 3, 4. These can be your 4 pass rushers, or it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can even have Duke Riley swap out for Andrew Van Ginkel as well. The other thing is you're going to have 4 defenders play the under. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 play these under zones right here, and you have 4 pass rushers where you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Then you're going to have 3 deep defenders. You're going to have 1, 2, 3, which could be covering deep, or 1, 2, 3 covering deep. What this means is that you have, of course, 4 pass rushers, 4 defenders who are going to be playing the middle of the field, 3 defenders that are going to be playing the deep part of the field, each taking a third of the field. Now, in this play, what's going to happen is that Jalen Phillips is going to drop right here as a hook defender. He's going to be coming over to this hook area. That's what defenders call it. That is the hook area. And Andrew Van Ginkel instead is going to be the 4th pass rusher, putting pressure on the quarterback. In this scenario, the defensive backs, Cater Kohu and Verone McKinley, so Cater Kohu and Verone McKinley, are going to be taking care of the seams and the flats. So the seams and the flats right here. Verone McKinley, seams and the flat right here. That's his responsibility. Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, and Noah Igbenogany. So Xavier Howard, Noah Igbenogany, Javon Holland are each going to be taking a third of the field. Xavier Howard is going to be taking this third of the field. Javon Holland is going to be taking the deep middle. Noah Igbenogany is going to be taking the deep left part of the field. Pre-snap, Eric, as an offensive lineman, what are you seeing right here pre-snap? You're like, okay, Andrew Van Ginkel is motioning and he is following this tight end, which leads the quarterback to believe, okay, he could be a man defender. He could be following him. Do I change my blocking here?
Yeah, and similar look to the last play, like we talked about before. You got your 4 down linemen, you got your 2 linebackers, pretty similar pre-snap look, but that pre-snap motion, is a pre-snap indicator of man coverage, especially when those linebackers are swapping like that. When Van Ginkel follows him and crosses, is that he said it was Duke Riley or David Long, whoever the other linebacker is. When Van Ginkel crosses him to follow, that's an indicator of man coverage, right? So you talked about Jalen Phillips dropping out on this. So you're going to have them sliding either left or right. But the problem with that from an offensive line perspective is Jalen Phillips is a very good pass rusher. So no matter which way the line is sliding, that right tackle, his initial set is going to be to Jalen Phillips. From there comes the communication of being able to see that he is dropping out and knowing that they have to be sure, first off, that nothing else is coming around. They're not looping anybody else around. Kohou's not blitzing off the edge. Nothing else is happening. But they've got to be able to not only communicate that they got to shift to the left, but they've also got to be able to execute that. And that can be really difficult to do when you're, when that right tackle is kick stepping out to his right.
Right.
And now suddenly we're going to ask him to change directions and still be able to be effective.
Right. We'll take a look and run the play right here. It looks like he's in coverage. Van Ginkel is trying to time the snap, and boom. He's got some space to make a play. And we see Phillips, he tries to rush, but he's look where he is at the line of scrimmage. He knows he's going to be dropping back, but he's trying to confuse the right tackle right here. And the right tackle can't really do much. And we see Van Ginkel gets picked up by the left tackle, but Bradley Chubb is left open. Puts the pressure. Lawrence throws a rocket for Ridley to try and make the play and makes it. Oof. What a play right there that was by Trevor Lawrence. So initially, defensively, this worked, but Trevor Lawrence just made one hell of a play. In a perfect world, this is a pretty good call right here. And you see the right tackle, as you mentioned, Eric, like he has to hesitate. He has to stop. And I'll go ahead and run this clip right here because you can see what each offensive lineman is doing here in this clip. They are sliding right here. They are sliding over to the left. Right here.
That looks like a 3/4 slide to the right. And this is a great
call.
Yeah,
to the right, not to the left, to the right.
Great call by Fangio because you can kind of anticipate that at times. I mean, the most common pass protection at any level of football is going to be either a half or a 3/4 slide one way or the other. And the side that the running back is on can be an indicator of that. So in that pre-snap look, your running back is aligned to your left side. That's a pre-snap indicator that your offensive line protection is likely going to slide to the right because you have the extra numbers on the left. Now that running back was not in pass protection this time.
No.
So the goal here would have been that this running back going out on that route is going to pull a defender out of there. But They already had a predetermined blitz called, and that left tackle now has to make a decision based on, like I said, it's based on the protection that's called. So sometimes the protection is going to say the most dangerous man, sometimes it's going to say the widest. So on this call, the protection would have said to get the most dangerous man, which would have been which is Van Ginkel, and that leaves Chubb as a free rusher. So this is a great call by Fangio to manufacture a free rusher by understanding what protection was going to be called and sending pressure to the side that was lighter.
Right, and when we're taking a look at the usage and the efficiency of the Fangio scheme, with the number of pass rusher usage that they have done, around 73% of the time they were sending 4 people out, and they were middle of the pack in terms of success rate, EPA per play, and explosive percentage. Now, their sack percentage with 4 pass rushers was almost 8%, which was third in the league. Sending 5 pass rushers, which was around 20% of the time, they had the second most sack percentage, with 13% of the time. With 6 pass rushers, which was less than 5% of plays, they were third in sack percentage with 23%. They were the second best defense in blitzing 6 pass rushers. And they were fifth in success rate when sending 6 pass rushers. When they sent 7, they weren't they didn't really get a lot of sacks at all. They actually got 0 sacks when that happened. So when they sent 5 or 6 pass rushers, they were a really good defense. They were getting the pressure out there as well. And a lot of Dolphins fans did not like that they only sent 4 a majority of the time. And unfortunately, that is the Fangio scheme. He's going to be sending 4 pass rushers because he expects the pass rushers to get after the quarterback and wants to make sure that the coverage is sound. He wants to limit the amount of explosive plays down the field, which is why the Dolphins are one of the best defense in limiting explosive plays. So you get, you don't give up a lot of explosive plays, but you're not generating those sacks. You're not generating those pressures that you need to get turnovers or create turnover worthy plays. It was more so, let's mitigate risk rather than let's try to capture and benefit a lot of rewards, which is what Anthony Weaver's system is going to be like. We're going to take a look at one more play on the good side right here. This is, let me go ahead and share the screen. Whoops. Okay, we are here. All right. So this play right here, this is also a nickel concept. This is called Ringo. This is what was a blitz called by Vic Fangio at a critical time, I believe, which was the 4th quarter. So right here we see Kader Kohu aligned towards the strong side of the formation right here with these 3 wide receivers and a bunch set. He is going to be the one blitzing until the ball is snapped. Now, the thing with the Fangio defense is you only blitz if you can hear the quarterback's cadence. You know his cadence. You can go ahead and rush and try to beat him off the line. Or once the ball is snapped, then you show the blitz call so that way you can confuse the quarterback and you do not tell them who is coming. What's going to happen is that Jalen Phillips right here is going to drop into zone coverage, and he's going to be covering the seams and the flats right here. That's going to be his responsibility. Now, because Kader Kohu is going to be blitzing on the Ringo call, Ringo is basically a right blitz. Lucky is a blitz coming from the left. Ringo is a blitz coming from the right. So there's some terminology education right there for y'all over there. So what the safeties are going to do right here, Deshaun Elliott and Javon Holland, they're going to rotate towards this side of the ball so that way they can cover the strong side of the formation, these 3 wide receivers right here, because Kader Kohu is going to be blitzing. So Javon Holland is going to be taking the seams and the flats right here away from Kader Kohu, which would be his responsibility if he was not blitzing. Deshaun Elliott is going to be taking care of the deep middle third part of the field. Before we run this play, Eric, again, 4 pass rushers, right? Protection call, pre-snap. What do you think the Chargers are doing?
So this is, again, a similar look to what we've seen in the last 2 plays, right? 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then your 5 DBs. With the way that Christian Wilkins is aligned down there in a 1 technique, probably going to see a 3/4 slide to the left again. And, probably going to have a similar effect with Phillips dropping out again. That right tackle is going to have to respect him as a pass rusher and then try to get back to the inside.
Pretty good blitz call, right?
Yeah. Do we have the end zone angle of this one or no?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah. So as we see this, they're going to let's see. So we got to go ahead and run through. Okay, so it's actually looks like a slide to the right. So it looks like they were anticipating pressure to the right. You watch that center, he's setting to the right, and then your two on the left are setting to the left.
Uh-huh. To the right, to the right, to the right. Yep.
So, again, this is a great call by Fangio in the sense that he's able to bring pressure to the side where they have less players blocking. So that's going to be a scenario where they, again, took the two most dangerous men, the two inside guys, and that outside guy is a free rusher. And even though it's only a four-man rush, that's still a blitz. We're still, it's interesting looking at the way that some of the stats are looked at, because you look at some of them, you see, that with Flores, the Dolphins had the highest five-man blitz rate that we talked about before, when it was really just the same five rushers doing the same thing. But then you look at the Fangio scheme, and it's four rushers, but it's not always the same four rushers. So it's a lot more creative than what the Flores pass rush looked like. And, Fangio does a really good job of being able to, identify where that protection is going to slide to and bringing an extra rusher to the weak side of the protection and getting those free rushers.
Right. Now we're going to take a look at three plays which were, not good or not indicative of, what the Dolphins needed out of that play or what Fangio called, and, it ultimately did not work. And we talked about some of the limitations of this Fangio scheme. You don't rotate your players. You have four pass rushers only, but it's different pass rushers coming at you at different times. He also didn't move his players out a lot. Like, players were just stuck in their position. Like Jalen Ramsey, he was an outside corner through and through. He wasn't in the slot, was not the safety at all. Holland was not the slot. He was not the blitzer at all. That is going to change with Anthony Weaver. You're going to see a lot of momentum players. They're going to be utilized at different positions as well. Defensive linemen are going to be rotated. It's not just going to be Zach Sealer playing 50, 60 snaps a game. Like, it could come down to 40. Neville Gallimore could be playing 20 snaps as well. Once Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are fully healthy, I don't expect them to be on the field at the same time as much as last year as well. We'll go ahead and talk about some of the wrong stuff that happened right here. Let me go ahead and share this screen right here. Okay. You able to see the play?
Yep.
All right. This is from the Baltimore game. And, as I went to rewatch this game, the Ravens used a lot of motion in this game. And it reminded me, it's like, holy crap. Todd Monken is basically Mike McDaniel for the Baltimore Ravens right here. A lot of motions up against these Vic Fangio schemes. And a lot of the motions call in a Fangio system is, one player is just checking as to what's happening. You stay in that position, or you just move along a little bit, and you communicate to the linebacker and safety, okay, when is the switch release going to happen? Who's going to be taking the switch release? Whose responsibility it is? So, for example, right here, Zay Flowers is going to be motioning out to the wide. What happens is that Eli Apple is also going to motion out to the wide. He's like, okay, I'm going to show that I'm going to be the one covering Zay Flowers. But the issue is Duke Riley, as a linebacker, he also widens out. He's like, okay, let's try to confuse the quarterback. Are we playing man? Are we playing zone? Who's going to have this responsibility? Is it going to be Eli Apple? Is it going to be Duke Riley? Is the communication sound right here? Who is going to be taking the motion man? If he is going to be drifting inside, does Duke Riley take him? Does Eli Apple pass him off? Or is Eli Apple just going to continue and cover the third part of the field, the deep third part of the field? Or is Zay Flowers going to continue to work his way upfield? Is Duke Riley also going to follow him? What is the communication happening here? We're going to go ahead and take a look at this play. All right, Zay Flower motions out. We'll stop right here. Okay. You see Duke Riley following. Eli Apple also shifts his base right here. Now, the key here is who's going to be covering Rashad Bateman? Is it going to be Duke Riley? Is it going to be Eli Apple? Who is it going to be? We'll go ahead and run the play, and I'll stop it. You can see Duke Riley. He is following Zay Flowers here on the motion. So you must assume that Eli Apple is going to cover Rashad Bateman.
Actually end up running into each other
Yep.
and end up picking themselves. And that happened multiple times in this game.
And take a look Take a look at Lamar Jackson right here. It looks like he's throwing to the left, right?
Right. I mean, that's him just looking off Javon Holland. Like, if I saw that matchup pre-snap and I knew that Zay Flowers running deep with man coverage against Duke Riley, that is 100% where I'm going. And all that he has to do is just get Holland to move to the right side of that field a little bit, and he's a non-factor in the play, which is exactly what happens if you look at where Holland is close to it. I think this is one of the limiting factors with the Fangio scheme, is that because they're not swapping positions, they're not moving players around, they're staying static with their be a great thing to be able to disguise it the way that they try to pre-snap. But I feel like it was too complex for the players that we had on the field last year when they were asked to stay in a static position pre-snap, but then try to sort out everything that was going to happen post-snap. I think that last play was a good example of that.
All right. This second play right here was up against the Chiefs in Germany, and this basically resulted in Kansas City's win probability going from 76% to 83% in the second quarter. So the Chiefs are going to be running a play called bench here from the Andy Reid offensive system. So what happens is the quarterback right here is going to be taking a 5-step drop right here. I believe this is Kelsey in motion. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offensive linemen right here. So you're going to have 2 wide receivers on this side, 2 pass catchers on this side, and their running back. So what's going to happen is the running back is going to be the chip defender and work towards the flat. Travis Kelce right here, now there's 2 options in what he can do. He can either be the drag route right here. He can run the drag route, or he is going to be the middle read. He's going to be cutting up to the middle, and he's going to be reading the safeties as to what they're going to be doing. If the safety is showing middle of the field close, where the safeties are covering the middle of the field, which in the Fangio system, very rarely they are, because in the Fangio system, they keep the middle of the field open. So if the middle of the field is open, Kelsey, he's going to be going inside and running a post, a deeper post concept right here. The outside receivers are going to be running a route basically called a bench, and it's to get these cornerbacks right here outside of their leverage. They're trying to stretch these cornerbacks into what they can do. So Jalen Ramsey right here, you can see based on his orange towel, it looks like he's manned up. He may be playing press man. But this defensive back right here, he is all the way wide. You can tell it is a zone defensive scheme at the moment. So what this play is going to be attacking where the leverage of the defensive backs is going to be. And I'll show you how they'll do it. These receivers are going to have options. They're either going to be playing it deep or they're going to be playing it a bit shallow. So on these concepts, this is called either a sink or a bench route. So what they're going to do is they're going to work out wide here, come back inside, and depending where the safety is, if he's out wide here, and if the corner is out wide here as well, they're going to run the route a little bit shallow towards the sticks right here so Mahomes can make the play. Same thing right here. They're going to be running out wide, back inside, and depending on where the safety is, if they're deep or if they're close. If the safety is deep, they're going to be running it shallow. If the safety in the corner is close, this wide receiver is going to be running it deep. What happens is that the defensive back, they're covering this part of the field. If they see the defensive back running, coming out wide, they're going to assume that they're going to stay in this position, and the safeties will take the wide receivers right here. I'm going to go ahead and run this play right here so you can see. All right, you see right here at the start of the drop, Ramsey just pushes him and stays. Right here, you're like, okay, Mahomes, whoa, I can throw right here. He's got a lot of space to throw right here. On this side of the ball, the defensive back is out wide. So the wide receiver can run it a bit shallow, or he can continue playing it deep and head towards uh, the out of bounds area.
Yeah, this is really a great throw by Mahomes on that. I mean, even though Ramsey's not able to make that play, he was actually in okay position considering that his primary responsibility there was to stay with that player that was in the flat as that play developed. But with the depth that he had, he came close to tipping that ball. But that's just Mahomes being Mahomes, and just has excellent touch on a throw that that throw might not be open for over half the quarterbacks in the league, but for Mahomes, that's just a simple pitch and catch, because he's just that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Ramsey, he just basically sinks on the ball right here. He's like, okay, I have Kelsey here on this drag route, which I said
Yep.
which would happen, right? He's either going to be running a drag or he's going to be working the middle of the field open right here. Now, if Kelsey were to run middle of the field right here, you have a linebacker.
Yep.
So it makes sense for him to come out onto this drag.
Yeah, and had Kelsey run towards the middle of the field, you'd probably have Jalen Ramsey sinking further into that route with no flat, no threat in the flat, which is what Kelsey created there to keep Ramsey from being able to sink into that.
Exactly. And again, this is one of the limitations of the Fangio system. The players have to play their responsibility, and if they do it, the opposing offensive team, like a play caller like a Shanahan and Andy Reid, McVay, LaFleur, which the Dolphins defense is going to be seeing towards the later part of the season, they're going to have to adapt. Okay, how do we attack this system? This is what the players do. This is their responsibility. It never changes. With Weaver, it's going to change on a week-to-week basis. Like, these offensive play callers and these quarterbacks, they can watch all the film that they want, but the game plan can change. Like, you're going to see the first quarter be like a test as an experiment. Okay, this is what they're showing us in this first quarter. Now let's adapt. Compared to with Fangio, we know his schemes. We know what each player is going to be doing. Let's game plan for it. Let's attack it. Let's build an early lead in the first quarter, which is what a lot of these good teams did to the Miami Dolphins in the playoff games and towards the later part of the season. Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, Weaver's ability, the way that he at least talks, and hopefully we're going to see it, to be more multiple, I think is going to be a big benefit, because you're not going to know the way that they're aligning every week. Hopefully every week we're seeing some different wrinkles in the way that guys are aligning or the personnel that's being used. So hopefully, it's more challenging to prepare for what they're going to see and not be able to, know what the pre-snap alignment's going to be, and be able to predetermine that stuff more often. I think it's definitely going to be a help to be able to be more multiple pre-snap.
Right. All right. This last play right here resulted in a touchdown. Eric, what are you seeing from the defensive line pre-snap?
Yeah, so again, same thing, except for that last play we looked at was a little different, but pretty much the rest of the plays that we've looked at today are basically the same thing. 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and your 5 defensive backs. You can anticipate that somebody else probably is coming in this situation. Probably going to see I'd say a slide to the right with the running back being in the backfield there. But yeah, it's kind of the same look that we've seen the whole time. So
we see
yep. So
5 rushers.
It's 4.
It's 4.
But we do get that slide to the right, and then Jerome Baker has that running back coming out of the backfield.
Right. And when we're taking a look here in terms of coverage, a little bit of a mix-up. Javon Holland and Xavier Howard are communicating. All right, who's going to be taking a receiver if he runs over to this outside? Is Holland going to be covering the deep half right here, Deshaun Elliott, this deep half, or are they doing deep third, deep third, deep third? You're going to see a little bit of a mix-up in the middle of this play right here, towards the strong side of the formation. You have what it looks like is Kelsey and two other wide receivers right here. They're working their way up the field. Cater Kohu gets mixed up, and honestly, it looks like way past towards the line of scrimmage, you have some interference from both Cater Kohu and the wide receiver. You can see Holland and X getting a little bit mixed up. Okay, who's going to be taking the switch release to the inside? Xavier Howard gets caught. Javon Holland is covering this pass catcher right here as well. So there's a mix-up. And Jerome Baker is a sitting duck because Jerick McKinnon, he's going to be coming out and he's going to be moving his body over to the right side where there's no other defender there. And I'll roll the clip.
Yep. And I think in this one, in my opinion, looking at it after the fact, this looks to me like it's a blown assignment by Jerome Baker. It looks to me as though Javon Holland is supposed to be kind of your robber in the middle of this, and everybody else is in man coverage except for Jerome Baker. It looks like Jerome is expecting somebody to take that receiver. It's essentially a mesh route over the middle there, and it looks to me as though Baker feels like he's playing in zone coverage when the rest of the defense is playing in man, and he just lets his guy continue to run across the field. Now,
and that's the thing with this scheme. When a play call towards the red zone or even a simple mesh or drag call, these linebackers get confused. They're like, okay, am I dropping into the hook zone? Am I taking the seam? Am I taking the flat? And then you have this running back here running the mesh. You're like, oof, the defender is in conflict. Is he going to be taking this running back shallow, or is he going to be covering the tight end, which is coming a little bit deep? The linebackers are basically being attacked. Like they don't know which defender they have to take, especially if the communication is not sound on the back end of the defense. And this is where it went wrong towards the later parts of the season, and especially in the playoffs. And we saw it up against there was one play up against the Washington Commanders as well where Jerome Baker got caught on a switch release where the running back and the wide receiver was Terry McLaurin, and I forgot the running back's name. They were meshing across each other, and McLaurin went to the outside, and the running back went inside, and Baker, it was either Jerome Baker or Duke Riley got caught, and it led to a touchdown for the Washington Commanders. So a lot of good offensive play callers feasted on similar plays like this, and the Dolphins could not figure out switch releases or how to deal with mesh routes.
Yeah, and I think that was, a lot of the big plays that happened against the Dolphins last year, it wasn't a, somebody getting physically beat. It was more miscommunication. And in my opinion, a big part of that was those static fronts or the static look, because it requires you to communicate even more. Like if you're able to move around and you're able to adjust, you can kind of talk on the fly. And that's something we talked about when we went over the Weaver defense before, is how much I liked how they were communicating in the secondary and, adjusting to what was happening in front of them. Whereas when you have to stay in your position, you're not allowed to swap, right? If they motion the slot receiver to the outside, and Jalen Ramsey's in the slot, he wouldn't be allowed to go out with him in the Fangio defense, or vice versa. If you had let's say that, last year we were playing the Buffalo Bills and Stephon Diggs was your outside receiver and he moved to the inside over the slot, it is what it is. You got to stick with what you got. Whereas with the Weaver defense, I think we're going to see a lot more freedom. And I think when you have guys that have high football IQ, like a Jalen Ramsey, like a Javon Holland, you get the Jordan Poyers, the Marcus Mays with those veteran experience, the Kendall Fuller. I think that we're going to see those guys. It may be a struggle early in the season. I think it's going to take a little time to adjust. So, don't panic if the first couple of weeks things seem a little off. But I think that the freedom that the players are going to be given in this system is going to result in better communication. They can practice everything they want all week, but when you get out there on the field, the players are the ones that have to be accountable for what's happening out there. And when you give them a little more freedom to you trust your guys, then I think that we're going to see better results because they're able to be on the same page, right? Vic may see it one way from the box. He's looking down and he's seeing it one way, but if Javon Holland and Jalen Ramsey don't see it that same way, then it's going to be difficult to adjust. And I just think that Weaver is going to give those guys the ability to, if we're in man coverage and, we have a motion where receivers are swapping, they're going to have a little bit of freedom to either decide, hey, we're staying where we are, right? Or they can swap positions and they can stay with their man matchups. I think that that's what I'm looking forward in this scheme is the freedom for them to have a little more ownership in what's happening on the field.
Fantastic analysis, Eric, on that as well. Stick with us here on the Five Reasons Sports Network on the Scouting Combine as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, go Fins.